Hello. Hey. Hey, you know how a bunch of us are currently on lockdown? I decided with that time, I'm gonna start working on some decks. So here's an unfinished one, which I'm hoping you guys can help me finish. And this one is Ayara, first of Locthwain. The premise behind this deck is very much an aristocrats deck with a lot of sacrificing, a lot of creating tokens, making going wide because of Ayara's main ability, which reads, whenever Ayara or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses one life and you gain a life. And the second ability is tap her, sacrifice another black creature, draw a card. So that's where I'm getting my inspiration from. So as I go through the deck, just remember that it's not finished. And if you want to help me, give me some suggestions or tips, what to add, what to take out, go ahead and leave it in the comments. And hopefully, in a little while, I'll have a finished product, a finished deck. Oh, and before I forget, if you if you like this video, or even if you don't, go ahead and subscribe and share it with your friends. Bully your friends to subscribe, so I can start making money. Hopefully, maybe one day soon. Okay, another one of my win conditions is Plague of Vermin, which reads, starting with you, each player may pay any amount of life. Repeat this process until no one pays life. Each player puts a 1/1 black rat creature token into play for each life he or she paid this way. So if you have a Yara on the battlefield and then play Plague of Vermin, you can end the game pretty much right there. Just pay a bunch of life, create a bunch of tokens, and Ayara deals a bunch of damage. Ping ping, ping ping. Another one of my win conditions, or combos, I guess it would be. It's these two. If you haven't seen them. Exquisite Blood reads, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. And combined with Sanguine Bond, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So it creates kind of like an infinite combo. And just goes round and round and round and round until all your players are all gone. That did not rhyme, but I tried. Oh, I forgot to mention that this deck has a zombie theme to it because zombies are cool. Are they cool? Are they so cool? I don't know. But let's start with the creatures. Crypt Breaker. I can pay a generic and a black mana, tap it, discard a card, and when you do that, it creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Also, I can tap 3 untapped zombies I control, draw a card, and lose a life. Losing life is not a big deal because reasons, but mainly because life is one of your resources that you have it, why not use it? Also, I have ways of gaining life, so it's not that big of a deal if I lose life. Gravecrawler. This cannot block, but you may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. This is great for sacrificing because you can always sacrifice it and then return it back as long as you have a zombie on the battlefield. Here's one of my sack outlets, and when I do sacrifice a creature, I can scry one, which is pretty helpful. Shepherd of Rot. I can tap this one, and when I do, each player loses one life for each zombie in play, which should come in handy, especially later on in the game. Relentless Dead. It has Menace. This creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. When Relentless Dead dies, you may pay black mana or a swamp. They're the same thing. If you do, return it to its owner's hand. But the best part of this one, when it dies, you want to pay X, which is any amount, and if you do, return another target zombie card creature with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. Blood Artist, another way to deal damage to your opponents. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses one life and you gain a life. So ping 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 ping. Ping 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 ping. Just like Zulaport Cutthroat. When this creature or another one dies, each opponent loses one life and you gain a life. Undead Augur. Whenever Undead Augur or another zombie you control dies, draw a card and you lose a life. So here's some card draw. Phyrexian Ghoul. When you do sacrifice a creature, Phyrexian Ghoul gets a +2/+2 until the end of turn. Stronghold Assassin. This one's pretty rad because you can tap it, sacrifice another creature, and destroy target non-black creature. Diagraph Colossus. When it enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 on it for each zombie in your graveyard. Whenever you cast a spell, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into the battlefield. Tapped. Nantuko Husk. When you sacrifice a creature, this gets a +2/+2 until the end of turn. Yahini. It has haste. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, Yahini gets a +1/+1 counter on it. And you can sacrifice another creature. Yahini gains indestructible until the end of turn. Lord of the Accursed. Zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. Also, I can pay generic and a black mana, tap it, and then this gives all zombie creatures menace until the end of turn. Bantu the Glorified. It has menace, indestructible, and it reads, Bantu the Glorified can't attack or block unless a creature died under your control this turn. To get around this little issue, pay 2 mana and sacrifice another creature. When you do, you get to scry 1, and each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain a life. Death Baron. Skeletons you control and other zombies you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. Plague Belcher. It has menace. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. And whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Zombie Trailblazer. Tap an untapped zombie you control. Target land becomes a swamp until the end of turn. The bottom portion reads, tap an untapped zombie you control. Target creature gains Swamp Walk until end of turn. Vengeful Dead. Whenever this creature or another zombie is put into the graveyard from play, each opponent loses 1 life. Undead War Chief. Zombie spells you play cost 1 less to play, so that's a good way to reduce the cost of my zombies. And zombies you control get +2/+1. This is another sacrifice outlet because I can tap it, sacrifice 2 creatures, and it'll let me return target creature card from my graveyard to the battlefield. Another way to bring stuff back. Kalidas. It has lifelink, and if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So that's a good way to get rid of some of their creatures. Also, you can tap 2 and a black, sacrifice another vampire or zombie, and when you do that, you can put 2 +1/+1 counters on Kalidas. Erebos, God of the Dead. It's indestructible, and as long as your devotion to black is less than 5, this is not a creature. It's an enchantment. What's good about this one is that it prevents your opponents from gaining life, and you can pay a generic and a black, plus paying 2 life. Once you do that, you get to draw a card. Falconwrath Noble. Flying. Whenever this or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life, and you gain a life. Epicure of Blood. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses life. Sir Conrad the Grim. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves the graveyard, this fool deals 1 damage to each opponent. And in the bottom it says, tap 2, each opponent puts a top card of their library into their graveyard. God Eternal Bantu. It has menace. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of permanents, then draw that many cards. And then when it dies, or if it's put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it in its owner's library, 3rd from the top. Sidisi, Undead Vizier. It has Death Touch, Exploit, and that means when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. And if you do that, you can search your library for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Noxious Ghoul. Whenever it or another zombie enters the battlefield, all non-zombie creatures get a -1/-1. So if I'm able to put a bunch of zombies on the battlefield, this could be a good board wipe. Ghoul Caller Gisa. I can tap a black and then tap her, sacrifice another creature, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens into the battlefield, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. Corpse Harvester. I can pay a generic and a black, tap it, sacrifice creature, and that'll let me search my library for a zombie card and a swamp card. I'll have to reveal it and then put them into my hand, then shuffle my library. Massacre Girl has menace, and when she enters the battlefield, all creatures get -1/-1, and then whenever a creature dies, it adds an additional -1. If you play this right, it could be a board wipe. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. Oh, and then you get to gain life equal to the total life lost that way. Grave Titan. It has Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, it creates 2/2 black zombie creatures. Mikaeus the Unhallowed. It has Intimidate. I'm not really sure what that means. I should probably look that up. And whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Also, in the bottom part, other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Butcher of Malakir. It has Flying. Whenever Butcher of Malakir or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Those were the creatures, and here's the rest of the stuff that I have in the deck. Liliana of the Dark Realms. You can +1 it to search your library for a swamp card, -3 it to give target creature either +X/+X or -X/-X until the end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. And the ultimate, -6, you get an emblem with swamps you control have each swamp you tap. Instead of tapping for 1, it taps for 4 mana. Liliana Dreadhorde General. Whenever a creature you control dies, you get to draw a card. +1, it creates a 2/2 black zombie creature. -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. The ultimate, -9, each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. Liliana Vess. You can +1 it. Target player discards a card. The reason that it's in here is for its -2, because you can search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. The -8, it lets you put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Liliana's Mastery. Zombies you control get +1/+1. Also, when it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 black zombie creatures. Phyrexian Reclamation. You can tap a generic and a black, pay 2 life, to return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Underworld Dreams. Whenever an opponent draws a card, it deals 1 damage to that player. Greed. Pay a black and 2 life, draw a card. Endless Ranks of the Dead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is half the number of zombies you control, rounded down. Grave Pact. Whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Dictate of Erebos. It has Flash. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Open the Graves. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Black Market. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. Add 1 to your mana pool for each charge counter on it. Never to Return. The Never part. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. And then once it's in the graveyard, you can play the return part because of the aftermath. You can exile target card from a graveyard and create a 2/2 black zombie creature. In Garrick's Wake. Destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. Altar of Dementia. It lets you sacrifice a creature, and then target opponent puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's powers from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Ashnod's Altar. I can sacrifice a creature and add 2 colorless mana. Exsanguinate. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Diabolic Intent. You have to sacrifice a creature, and then it'll let you search for a card and put it into your hand. Soul Ring for some mana ramp. Bantu's Monument to reduce the cast of my black creature cards. Also, whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain a life. Thought Vessel, so I can have no maximum hand size, and for some ramp. Heraldic Banner. When this comes into play, I choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+0, and it lets you add mana. Charcoal Diamond. Here's some more ramp. Unstable Obelisk. Some more ramp, and later on in the game, I can use it to destroy a target permanent. And the last one is Jet Medallion to reduce the cost of my black spells. And that's it. That's what I have so far. If you have any suggestions as to how to improve it, I haven't added the lands yet because I'm not there yet. I still need to work on this deck. So if you have any suggestions or tips, go ahead and leave it down in the comments. Yep. Okay, bye.